The following is a fairy tale. It does not resemble anything in reality. Don't take it seriously. Came up with this while I was having a sip of coffee. Young child being learned in a upscale household in a society somewhere on earth long ago. Noticed, because he wouldn't go to bed on time, that at night clocks run at a different rate than they do during the day when you're at work. From midnight till 6 a.m., they run at a different speed than they do from noon to 6. And specifically, he narrowed it down to being right in the middle of the period of time when you're at work, working 9 to 5, centered at, let's say, 1 p.m. or so in the afternoon, and then centered at 1 a.m. when everyone should be asleep, the clock ran at a different rate. And he noticed that exactly 8 hours of sleep on the clock would really be 7 hours. And that 8 hours of work time, right in the middle, would really be 9, which means everyone was being paid for 8 hours but worked 9. Or was it the other way? What time is supposed to be the real time? Should we average them? This young child was laughed off at the dinner table while a servant he was saying this to stood by holding his tray and looked over to his father, who ran a company that made clocks and watches, who was looking very, very frightened. The young boy was just barely old enough to be being taught anything, but had figured out by looking at the back of the clock that the AM versus PM time setting, if you shifted it, would give you vastly different results, which shouldn't happen if it was doing linear time. And that there was no other explanation other than someone had made sure that everyone got an hour less sleep and everyone had to work an extra hour without being paid. And at the end of the day, when the servant went home, he then turned off his clock on the wall and left his pocket watch running and waited till exactly 12 hours later to run home and change his clock by turning it on by letting it tick. At exactly the same time on the dial. And was able to confirm to his boss, yes, the clocks are different. It does rob us of an hour during the day by making us work an extra hour, and at night it robs us of some sleep by giving us a shorter night and saying it's longer. And you run the company that makes these. That's preposterous. You shouldn't be up late fiddling with clocks. I wasn't. I did this on my lunch break. Well, you will have no more lunch breaks. And he then whispered this only to a few people. But he mainly went to the clockmaker up the street that was not employed by his boss and confronted him. And he became very nervous and told him that he wasn't going to serve him. Within a week, everyone asked when this had happened because everyone had run a simple check. They altered their clock or their pocket watch, either one, whichever one would be the least disruptive to the day. And some of the upper middle class households had 2 clocks. So they set them exactly 12 hours out of phase, usually at noon or 1 p.m. is the time when they would shift them, by turning one of them off late at night, usually at midnight or 1 a.m. This had spread all over the land. Everyone had realized that this had been a trick and asked a simple question, how many years? To which they would be told that they didn't know what they were talking about, they were non-experts, that this was a very technical thing, and that mathematics would prove that they were not doing anything strange. Meanwhile, a simple test of do clocks work the same depending on whether they're set to AM or PM was being ignored. The riffraff of society, as well as the upper middle class, which had not been let in on this, became furious and decided to make a simple pact. When the young one is 100 years older, or when he dies, we will allow you to set the clocks the way they are now. But from now on, all days will give us 7-hour days of work, where we're paid 8 hours, and we will have a 7-hour night sleeping time where we sleep 8. And you will live knowing this and not be able to do anything about it because we can change our clocks. And you can't. This infuriated the rich people, the powerful. And then they, of course, explained to them, so for this last several days, we've been going to all the clocks and changing them all. You notice they're all synchronized. And they will stay this way. And every time you try to change them back, we'll change them back. Your only option is to simply make them work the way they should, so no matter which AM or PM time we set them to, they will actually work the same. Therefore, no one is cheated, and you no longer have to deal with this problem. Refusing to acknowledge this happened, even though at this point it's in every newspaper and no one's shutting up about it. All of the rich and powerful people begrudgingly said, well, we'll change all the clocks. And they said, no. You will pay everyone back for the next 100 years. All clocks will run wrong because we will set this right. And you have to maintain the lifespan of that young boy who discovered it. Decades later, the young boy finally died at the ripe old age of 125 because everyone made sure he lived as long as possible. Clocks were changed. All of the old newspaper articles and old talk were outlawed and ruled and suppressed, which did nothing other than make people chant it louder. Time sure flies when you're in hell. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.